What's up, everybody? It's Troy Cartwright. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, we just got a couple small pieces of housekeeping to take care of. Number one, join the 10-Year Town community. Go to 10yeartown.com and sign up. You don't want to miss out on that. And second, I hope you have a great day. Hope you can do those two things for me. Thanks. Today's guest is the legendary Kelly Archer. Kelly is originally from Vancouver, British Columbia. You know her from songs like Can't Sleep Without You, and she actually has the brand new Cody Johnson single, a song called I'm Gonna Love You. And we talk about that in this episode, her journey from Canada to Nashville and back, and a lot more. So without further ado, here she is, Kelly Archer. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Can I say congratulations?
For what?
For this. Because this is a really good podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Like, even other songwriters I talk to, like, we all are like, I really like this podcast.
Oh,
like,
man.
I listen. I love the guests, the variation of guests that you have. Like, there's some people that you've interviewed. I'm like, I don't even know who that is. But now I'm like, oh, I didn't know they worked over there. And, like, really good advice. Like, it's just, I like your interview style.
Thank you.
Right now, with that tree behind you, I feel a little between two ferns. So this
That's what everybody says. But if I'm funny, it's always on accident. So.
Well, it's good. It's coming across.
No, that's so nice of you to say. I love doing this, and I get a lot out of it. I learn so much, and we've written together a lot. Mm-hmm. So you know me. I'm a very curious person. I love to just like I feel like everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And there's like a little, like something special in everybody. And it's almost like trying to like crack a nut. Like you roast it, and then eventually it like pops open, and there's some tasty treat in there. Like whatever that thing is, I love that.
I don't know if you've had this experience, but like where you're set up with somebody new.
Yeah. People, sometimes it's someone I've never met before or ever even talked to.
I go in with the mentality that I'm going to spend about an hour and a half asking questions. Especially if it's an artist, right? Of course.
You got to get to know
I don't
them.
want to just throw out random ideas.
Right. With no context.
Yeah. Because I've done it before. Like, oh, look at this hook. And it was more about me selling my own idea,
right,
versus trying to like connect it to the person I was writing with.
Yeah.
And so that's a growth as a writer. You learn.
Totally.
I get better things if I ask a lot of questions.
Yes. And that has been a huge part of my learning process. I've been writing songs for a long time. I feel like maybe just in the last couple of years, I've been doing it more, not just as an artist, like going in there like as a third or top line, whatever you want to call it.
Creative.
Yes.
As a creative, yeah.
And it is totally a different skill set of like, oh yeah, I've got to make sure that this is like right for the other person.
I think about that a lot with people that I know are also artists.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes feel lucky that I'm just a chameleon writer because I can shapeshift in any room. I could write with a 16-year-old young girl wanting to write about the boy she has a crush on one day, and then go in with somebody who's got, been married and has kids and wants to write about something else or whatever else is going on in their lives. But I have some friends, if you included, think about people like Adam Hambrick, who are really good artists, but also really good writers.
Totally.
And I see that transition, and I've often wondered, God, that's got to be hard, because it's like you almost have to, it's like an extra step to have to step out of.
It's just a new skill.
It's a new skill.
It can also be confusing sometimes. This is like really inside baseball, but whatever. Maybe it's interesting to somebody. Like sometimes I'll write with a younger artist. Mm-hmm. And then there's like an initial confusion. It's like, who are we writing for?
Yeah.
Right? And not for me either always. Like I'm always just going in there with the mentality of let's write the best song. I'm not a good like let's write for I'm making it up, but a Morgan Wallen pitch today.
Right.
Like that's never been my bag. But yeah, it just takes a while to sort of learn the like it's never a direct comment of like we're writing for you. It's more of like trying to cultivate the right energy.
But have you ever gotten to that spot where you've waited a little too long and then the one person's assumed you're writing for you and you're assuming you're writing for them? Yeah. And then there's this weird, awkward moment mid-write where I know I've been the third in that going, oops, which way should we go, guys? Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. But, you know, I think it's also, and this is something that I'll give a lot of credit to like Big Machine, where I've been writing for the last few years, I give him a lot of credit for is I don't know, we're always talking about it. Like, how are we branding you as a songwriter? Mm-hmm. And that's just been like a subtle shift I've noticed over time. Like when I'm going into rooms, you know, more so with artists now. And now when I'm going into rooms with artists, they're not just going like, what do we do? Why are you like, what are we doing? You know,
right.
I'm just here to write a great song today. And like,
yeah. And it's really just a part of the conversation too, because who's writing about something that's personal, or is it just an idea we're going to figure, you know, weave the idea a little bit.
And then it's back to the same thing. And ideas to me, like having a conversation with someone new, it's like every idea's got a tasty treat in the middle. Yeah. And you just got to roast it and like crack it open. Yeah. You know, and then that's what makes things great. So, yeah. So I always start this thing off with the same question. So we're kind of already into it at this point, but how long have you been in town?
Well, that's a two-parter. Okay. Because coming from Canada. Yeah. My first trip, I left on January 7th of 2001. Okay. And I drove the at the time, I want to say it was about 2,800 mile drive with my AAA flip map and no cell phone. Wow. And drove from West Coast Canada, California, hang a left on 40. Didn't know a soul. Yeah. Didn't know a single person. I wandered around, popping into NSAI, popping into ASCAP, popping into places. I was pretty shy. Didn't know what I was doing.
What compels someone to leave their home, which is very far away? Yeah. And it's a different country. Yep. And move to Nashville or drive to Nashville. I don't know if you were moving. We didn't.
No, I couldn't move here because I didn't have any kind of work visa. Yeah. So I was just testing the waters, and I really flipped a coin between coming to Nashville or going to New York to do theater, because the only thing I had done really creatively was theater in school. I had just started writing songs. I was managing a bank at the age of 22. I had a really good job. Dang. And I was like, they were offering me more money to stay, but all I knew is I wanted to do something creative. I didn't care about grades. I did well in school. I got a scholarship. I went and took classes in publishing, recording engineering, just anything I could spend the money on that felt like it was going towards the creative side of me. And I just kind of knew that from the get-go, but I didn't know what was a job. Like, I didn't know this was a job. Yeah. Let alone one that I could sustain a living doing. So I would come here, and every 7-8 weeks, I'd run out of money, and I would turn around and I would drive back.
No way.
To my 3 jobs.
How long of a drive is that?
Depending on if I went diagonal because the weather was okay, or the big L because of the weather being winter. It was anywhere from 48 to 52 hours. Jeez. Like Fort Collins, Colorado was sort of my midpoint. Yeah. 24 hours. And I would go back to my 3 part-time jobs, worked at Red Robin
That's crazy.
Worked at a chemical plant in the morning, did some temp work. And then I would save up for 2 months and I would turn around and I would drive back.
Were you making progress like each trip?
I was making very little progress for the first 6 trips. And on my 7th drive, well, I should say my first 5 trips. And then my 6th trip was driving back. At that time, I was really sad about driving back. I was feeling frustrated and my car broke down and I flagged down a trucker and then I had to get towed. And then this tow truck was taking me 2 hours to get my transmission fixed somewhere.
Oh my God.
And in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, just like defeated, crying.
Yeah.
And the tow truck driver was like, all right, we're going to turn your day around now. Where are you coming from? And I was like, well, I'm coming from Nashville. And he's like, oh, I used to live in Nashville. I was like, oh, really? What did you do? He goes, oh, I thought I was going to be a songwriter. And I was like, what? In the middle, I don't remember. It was either Colorado, Wyoming-ish, somewhere around there.
Somewhere where there was a lot of space.
Yeah. And he told me a bit of his story about being down on Lower Broadway. And he's like, I just think you just need to go do it. And I was like, you know what? I just need to go do it. So I go back home and I was really worried about asking for favors. I didn't want to be the person asking for favors. But I had met some people by then. And so I just started calling other songwriters and going, will you introduce me to your publisher? And then I kind of had it set in my mind that this next trip back was going to be my last time I had to come home. Mm. And I got my publishing deal that next trip.
Wow.
Met my publisher in an elevator. And a week later, I had a publishing deal.
That's insane.
Insane. People don't get deals the way I got a deal. It was like, we need a girl at our company.
Well, people don't like drive 50 hours there and back 6 different times either. So I've known you for a long time, but I didn't realize your fortitude that you had. Yeah.
And at the same time, like, because I was so not a songwriter yet. Mm. I knew 3 chords. I had written a couple of songs that some friend of the family encouraged me.
Yeah.
That I wasn't very secure in my, that I could do it for a living. And then every trip I built a little confidence because I started to treat it like I was going to college because I didn't go to college. So I would go sit at the Bluebird by myself. I would go sit at anywhere that there was music. The bookstores would have a songwriter night and I'd be there and I'd be like, oh. And then my trips back and forth, I would record ideas. I'd talk to myself in my little recorder. I went to every NSAI, pitch to publisher, little thing.
Yeah.
And I treated it like I treated other things prior, like a study course.
Yeah.
And I really learned from the best. There were incredible writers along Music Row at the time.
Yeah.
And you could walk from, remember like publishing companies used to have these mixers at like 4 p.m. I don't know if this is maybe before your time.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But this is where I met my publisher, my first publisher, Cole Wright. But we were at Barbara Orbison's building and they would have these mixers at like 4 p.m., 4:30. They would put out some cheese and crackers and have basically like Bud Lights and whatnot. And they would have their writers sit on stools in the foyer area or the little open area.
Yeah.
And they would play pitch to A&R and labels. And people would just come after work and hang out.
Yeah.
And I would go there for the free food because I was broke. And I would just meet people and just kind of network a little bit. And that's kind of what I did. And on the way to one of those, on my way to my free cheese and crackers, I met my publisher in the elevator ride.
Oh my gosh. That's
my first publisher.
Insane.
Yeah.
And how did it go? How did your first
deal go?
Yeah.
Well, that publisher was only with the company for about a year post me signing there. They got a new guy there that I didn't particularly get along with, or he didn't sign me. I wasn't his.
Yeah. Wasn't a culture fit, maybe.
No. And the company shut down.
Yeah.
And there were great writers there. Me and Jamie Pollum were at our first publishing company together as like baby writers. And then because I was on a work permit, I had to get another job. So I just started now I knew some people, and I had some regular co-writers, and they introduced me to their publisher, and I signed over with Ron Stuvey and Dave Pakula and a guy named Aaron Rathbone over at the old BMG.
Okay.
Yeah, before they sold the first time. And at that time, I was doing a little bit of artist stuff.
Gotcha.
I was sort of pushed into doing some artist stuff.
Yeah, as many a talented young songwriter is.
Yeah, I think when you can sing, they just assume you want to be an artist. And this is before I was... It's crazy.
Now, if someone says they want to be a songwriter, like they're like, oh, I don't want to be, I just want to write songs. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, no, I'm serious. I'm like, okay, just, it's like,
I've met some young writers recently who I've been like, so you're doing artist deal? And they're like, no, I've been surprised because that's new again.
Which, and I should say, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And I actually just had coffee with a young songwriter who's a young kid, like 21, 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I said, do you want to be an artist or anything? He goes, no, I just want to write songs. And I was like, hey man, that's awesome. And also like understand that is an asset because now you're in a room, young guys are territorial.
Yeah.
You got two artists writing. It's like, who's going to get this song or whatever. So there's a lot of ways that that's an asset,
Yeah. There's like a pro and a con to it, just like everything else. Yeah. Like the con is that you don't automatically get rights.
Right.
As just a writer.
Right.
Or like if you are signed to a deal, you might get some upper echelon rights that you dream of because there's an opportunity there for writers to write with the artist, right? Yeah. As a writer, you don't necessarily get that opportunity. I'm still knocking on doors to get in some rights that maybe a brand new artist can get in.
Yeah.
But there is a certain amount of longevity when you really stick to it and like as the non-artist in the room where you can just be, I don't want to say the voice of reason, but in some ways, a collaborator without there being that threat that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And some people really love that.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. And you just develop probably faster. You're developing like I don't know. I think of every write as like you show up with your invisible thing of tools.
Yep.
And if you're not worried about being an artist or whatever, like I just feel like you get more tools faster.
Yeah.
It's like a video game. You're unlocking new tools all the time.
And over the years, as you kind of like do it as long as I've been doing it now, which is, so we're at almost 23. Wow. So I signed my deal at the end of 2002 is when I actually moved here, started working on got a work permit.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it ever since the end of 2002.
That's amazing.
Ought to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you develop skills over those years, even where the job of the non-artist in the room, like I've developed that skill over a long time.
Sure.
How to write with two artists in the room and how to decipher where we're going. And that's where I say the voice of reason comes in.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
We'll talk to me about, so you sign your first deal and you have this other deal, like, how was the ride? Like what were some high water marks along the way? And
the good things that were happening were the relationships, right? Writing with, like, developing a creative, what is it called when you're like, you're really just connected. You know what I mean? Like finding the same vibration or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure.
That's a real fun development. The publishing deals were a little sketchy for the first few publishing deals because the first one went out of business after 2 years. The second one, it was a 5-year deal, but they sold, BMG sold to Universal after my first year.
Wow.
So I had just renewed that second year, and we were all going over to Universal as like stepchildren, basically, that weren't signed there. And then I got dropped because they got way too many writers. They just absorbed. And at the time, I was still just getting things going. So I get dropped. I go to another company, but they were a newer company in town. They hadn't really built the company fully yet. So that only lasted 2 years. So it was every time you got a little bit going, it was just like, oh no, I got to find another deal. Plus I'm like, each time I have to do it by a certain time to stay in the country.
Oh, so there's like this,
I can't go get a job.
Real pressure of like, you might
my work permit
have to leave the country.
My work permit only allowed me to do that.
Okay. So that's how it works. You're limited to the scope of your work is very defined.
For the first 10 years till I got my green card.
Okay.
I couldn't work another job. So I'm living off of that salary, and I can't do anything else. And every year I have to renew it. So it was tricky for a little bit. But again, it kept me on my toes. It kept me having to grind and make something happen. Because I had to have another deal.
Right.
So as difficult as it was, it really sharpened my skills. It made me more assertive in the room. It made me more assertive outside of the room, because I'm kind of a introvert in a very extroverted community.
I think we're similar. I'm incredibly introverted, and I always say, like, I would rather die than bother someone. Like, I think I could be at the hospital, like when my leg was falling off, and I'd be like, really sorry to bother you.
I just had this conversation because I just traveled to Denmark. And I was saying that the jet lag hit me so hard going there because I had a bit of insomnia. That's a new thing that's happening.
Oh, lovely.
Just before I left. But I got an aisle seat, partially because I like the freedom of it. But mostly because even though I'd love to lean up against a window on an overnight flight to Europe and take a little snooze, the thought that I would have to wake somebody up to go to the bathroom was mortifying. So instead, I take an aisle seat and fly red eye overnight, an 8-hour flight. And land like a zombie because I didn't sleep a wink. I can't sleep on a aisle seat in the middle of the plane.
Been there.
Terrible. But so it does, it did sharpen my skills to be a little more assertive and a little bit more out there. Whether it's just going out to listen to music, making friends, in the room, outside the room, like it forced me to be that. Where I would have been perfectly happy writing songs and going immediately back to the house. And cooking dinner and hanging out with my pets and like going out with one or two friends every once in a while. Like I'd be perfectly happy with that. But
quit describing my dream life.
My actual Instagram says writer of songs, maker of soup, watcher of Dateline, because that's all I want to do is I just want to make soup and watch Dateline. But,
oh gosh. But
I do go out, but it it pushes you out there a little bit.
Yes. And you learn over time. It's not so scary out there. You know, it's good to advocate for yourself and make those relationships. So I correct me if I'm wrong, but I was doing, I do like a little bit of research for every guest. So your first number one was it 17?
15.
15.
Yeah, 2015. Yeah.
And that was the
Brett Young
Sleep Without You. So you signed your first deal in 2002.
Yes.
15, you get your first number one.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was crazy because I had just been dropped from so I had 2 years. Barely any time to get anything going before I had to start over. Then I had a deal that lasted 4 years. And that was a really good period of time. I had stuff going on. Like I had few songs on the first Dustin Lynch record, and I had songs on Nashville, and like there was little bits here and there that were really starting to happen.
Yeah.
But the month after 4 years, you develop quite a bit of debt at a company, and it just wasn't doable.
Yeah.
So I finished that, and we were in the kind of the heart of the bro movement, which I hold no animosity. I think some people did it really well.
Yeah.
I didn't like the 25 copycats of what was really good.
Yeah, totally.
But there was a period of time, and this is just logic, where I was like, I could write Song of the Year and no one's listening to me right now because I'm not in camps.
Yeah.
I'm not out there enough to be in a lot of these new camps. And so I was like, am I just spinning my wheels a little bit? And I was weighing it against spending time with my family. So I had just got let go. I had my green card. I could stay and work or whatever. That was fine. But I was kind of just like, was this my ride? Like I had a really good time. I'm out of debt. I bought a little house. This might be a good time to just be like, thanks, Nashville, and like go back. And Jeremy Stover took me for breakfast and said, I don't think you're done. I just think you need to be put in the right rooms. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's what I've been saying. But I mean, like, he goes, well, I'm opening a publishing company. I want you to write for me. I said, well, I'm going to give you let's do 18 months.
Yeah. And
then I'll give you some options. But let's just say, if nothing's going on after 18 months, let's just call it. And he's like, okay. And I said, and I'm doing whatever I want.
Right.
I'm not chasing this stuff out here. I'm just going to write. I'm going to hone back to writing skills that I learned from this town. He said, do that. And then within my first 2 years of that deal, I had 3 songs on the radio. Wow. That were all new. And the Brett Young one came, and here's the funny thing. You know who else gave me some great advice was Jody Williams, took me for breakfast.
Yeah.
And my crew of people that I kind of grew up in town with had blossomed. Luke Laird, Natalie Hemby, like they were really having great success. And I was super happy for them. And Jody Williams takes me for breakfast and he says, I see you and I see that your friends have kind of blossomed. I don't think you should try to catch up to them. I think you should take a look left and right at the people you're working with right now because you guys are next. Mm-hmm. And it made me not feel so anxious about
being behind.
It allowed me to kind of settle in. And he was right about it. Like, you know, it was me and it was Emily Shackleton and it was Adam Hambrick and some newer relationships that I had and we all kind of had our moments right around the same time.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool experience. And now I tell other young writers, stop trying to get that one upper echelon right. Like, look at your friends, man. You guys will be next.
Yeah.
Because I think it was such good advice.
It's amazing advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Brett, I thought that if I was ever going to get a big cut and have a big single, it was going to be on a major label artist. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be one of my dream, artists that I've wanted to write with for 10 years. And it was finally going to happen. And I've had 4 number 1 songs now, and 3 of them were the first for the artist. Wow. And I take so much pride in that because that is, it's kind of special to kind of have somebody's first, but it's sort of like shakes me off of trying to plan ahead stuff that I have no control over.
Yeah.
Because the way it happened, I couldn't have planned it.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a good lesson too of you never know.
You never know.
You never know what the day is going to hold. Here's some new artist. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
Very hard for me to say no to because of the way that this all happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of happened. It snowballed a little bit quickly, but when it actually happened, the morning it went #1 the first time.
And this is Sleep Without You.
This is Sleep Without You. This was with Brett. I'm sitting at home. It's a Sunday. You get the final word. It's actually like happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap. And I'm by myself, and I'm just sitting there on a Sunday morning going, oh my gosh, it happened after all this time.
Yeah.
And then the texts start coming in. And I don't know if this is, I've talked to other writers that have said they feel the same way. I thought maybe it was just me, but I think being creative, sometimes you just assume people don't like you or they think you're terrible, or maybe they think you're nice but not very good at your job. Like the scenarios we create in our mind when things aren't, it doesn't feel like you're succeeding.
Yeah.
And so I had created a little bit of a narrative that maybe nobody likes me. But then I got all these texts and I genuinely felt people's happiness for me.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like even a superficial congratulations.
Right.
Like people were genuinely happy for me and I felt it.
Yeah.
I got bombarded with it. And it was over. That part was better than the thought of like the check that was in the mail. Oh,
I mean, I don't know. I hope to find out.
You will.
But I whenever a friend of mine gets their first hit or their 10th hit and I text them or whatever, like I mean it every time.
Yes.
I'm so stoked.
Same.
And you're right. Like you do start to wonder if anybody likes you or whatever, but I think everyone's just the #1 is like just a moment, it's like a signal. It's a big loud firework that you exist or whatever. And it just gives people an opportunity to say something nice, but they think it all the time,
And then after that little spurt of activity, there was this renewed energy and I wanted to take advantage of that. And so I was showing up just like I was before, but like I was definitely wanting to utilize all that energy that was coming my way.
Yeah.
And then the AMP Awards happen and I get nominated and win for Rising Songwriter of the Year. Not Songwriter of the Year, but Rising Songwriter of the Year.
And how many years in were you at?
We're about 16 by the time the songs started hitting.
Amazing.
And there was like, I was like, what if I do win this award? What am I going to say? Is that the Ryman?
Yeah.
I was like, holy smokes. And I got up there. I had nothing really planned to say. But once I got up there, I was just kind of like, I feel like, how you have like a house plant that you forgot to water for a while? And I describe it like this plant. I was like, some people might throw that plant away, but somebody might put it in the window and give it a little water. And then you walk by like a week later and it's like a brand new plant. I go, I feel like a brand new plant. I feel like I got watered, you guys, with this, genuine like love I was getting back. And so, so that was just kind of a funny thing.
Oh, what a beautiful.
That's all it really takes, right?
Little love.
Even when, even nowadays, you find out someone's even interested in a song.
Yeah.
I perk up a little.
No doubt.
It made my day.
Yeah.
A little bit. Somebody texts me at random and says, hey, that song you have out, I really like it.
Yeah.
Like a peer goes, I really like it, the song. Mm-hmm. Not just that it's out there and congratulations, but I really like the song. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Get really excited about it still.
As you should. Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing. And we work so hard at it, you just want a little, like, I don't need the validation. I'll probably do it anyway, but it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
I always say.
I don't need it, but I do need it.
Yeah, right.
It's really it.
Yeah. I always say, try to live by the advice, and I don't remember who said it, but it's like, never pass up the opportunity to like tell someone that you admire them.
Yeah.
I think that's really true.
Yeah, just pay somebody. I spend a lot of time, I don't post a lot on social media.
Yeah.
I don't have TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I like to check people out before, especially before I write with them or something.
Sure.
But if I see something or hear something, or somebody's putting out an album or whatever, I still, whether I have something there on there or not, I like to go and just be like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Just made a record.
Yeah.
I want to be here when you celebrate it.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the journey.
Yeah.
So did you, after it happens, like, I guess the next ones like seems like they came quickly. They probably didn't, like, it probably just, it's my perception, but
they came fairly quickly. The first two came kind of sort of back to back.
Yeah.
And then in that, there was another song that went top 10. So that was not, it was like, that was all within a year. I was like this close to like a triple play. So I was
cooking.
like, oh, so close. Yeah. And then it was a while before, it was several years before the next one. And then that one happened during the lockdown of the pandemic.
Oh, was that
so that wasn't a lot
was
of
that the
group celebrating.
What song was that?
That was Travis Denning, After a Few.
I love that song.
That's one of my favorite ones to actually perform out.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. It's a banger.
You know, when we wrote that song, I remember specifically me and Justin and Travis, the boys were geeking out on guitars.
Yeah.
We were at a Weaver studio. And I'm sitting over a table just scrolling through ideas. And, you know, Travis is such a great guitar player, and they're doing something that felt kind of rock.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up being like a pretty big, like, Bryan Adams fan and stuff. And I was like, there was a creative intent when we wrote that song. I was like, you know how like now we start a song and we start here and then we like burst at the chorus? But you know how like Bryan Adams did like Heaven and he came hot like out of the box with that?
Yeah.
What if we come hot out of the box?
Love that.
Start with some straight up energy in their face.
Yeah.
And like that was how we started the song. That's how we started writing it, like right out of the box with a little bit of that rock edge in it. And the melodic we did not start down here.
Yeah.
And I was always so excited about that song because of that. And I really didn't think it's had a chance of getting cut, let alone be a single.
Yeah.
Because at the time, there wasn't a lot of rock in country yet.
Right.
So it all just kind of, but people, they put it out there and got some feelers from, I think, radio people. And it, for some reason, people just liked the song.
Yeah. And it was like wasn't it like the longest?
I think it still is, or it's tied.
It was like 62 weeks
67
Jeez.
weeks.
It's amazing.
And you know, it's really 67 weeks from the time it enters the charts to where it got to number one.
It's probably like almost 2 years or something by the time it...
And they were going to quit on the song, the top 10.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit.
Gotcha.
And the tours got canceled. They were going to move on because he was hopping on tour.
Yeah.
And they're going to release a new one. And then we all know what happened.
Yeah. COVID, man.
Yeah.
Changed everything for everybody.
That's the only reason why they stuck that song out as long as they did.
That's crazy.
Which of course I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the last one you had, Wild as Her. And
that's the
just crazy journey. I know we've had Brett on here talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a while ago, but
yeah,
it's just cool.
We wrote that one in 2017. It was funny because when we got interviewed about that song when it was finally coming out, and I called Brett because I knew he had been interviewed, and it had been so long. We wrote it in 2017.
Yeah,
and I was like, I remember it. I remember where we were, but I wasn't into where I was like thinking about details about the song. And then he told me a couple things he had said, and he said, well, it was your idea. And I thought, it was? So I actually went through my phone looking for the idea, because usually I make a lot of notes.
Oh, like a voice memo or
just like, I just type things in the notes.
Okay.
Like when I have an idea or whatever.
Yeah.
And I found it. And I remember, I was like, oh, I remember where this idea came from. It was an episode of Sex and the City. And then it was so weird because that episode kept coming on my TV after. I remembered that part of it.
It's like the Facebook algorithm when it hears you talking about dog food or something.
Exactly. That's something weird. I want to get into that, but something really weird with that. I was pet sitting for somebody, and it was a little dog. I said, "Does he eat out of does she eat out of a thimble?" And I'm not kidding you. 20 minutes later, I had a video of this tiny little monkey drinking water out of a cap. That's just weird. How do they know?
Wow.
Creepy.
Sorry. That gave you total non sequitur there.
Yeah, completely off topic. No, but Wild as Her was just a trip because that one, when we cut that, I remember cutting the track. I remember cutting Morgan's vocal on that over at Danik Dupel's studio in Berry Hill. And I remember feeling, I kind of come from the school of, I did my job, I wrote the song, and now I have no control.
Yeah, for sure.
Do what you will with it. But every once in a while, I have a very strong feeling about a song. I felt it about Sleep Without You. And with Wild as Her, I went to the label and I was like, hey, you're welcome. I was so sure that was a hit. And they were like, no party songs. Or sorry, they said no relationship songs, only party songs. And I was like, but they were like, we love it. It will land. And listen, they're doing fine. They made great choices for, he's fine.
Yeah.
But it was one that lived rent-free in my brain.
Yeah.
That it was a missed opportunity. I just knew, I believed in the song for a very long time. Someone else cut it, didn't do much with it. And then I had been pitching songs to my buddy Tyler Joe Miller up in Canada.
Yeah.
Songs that I thought if I had any opportunity getting into this camp, I would pitch them this song, but they don't listen to outside stuff. So I just started pitching him songs, and Tyler kept having hit after hit up in Canada on these songs. So when they came back around for some more songs, I was like, here's another one I think was a missed hit.
Yeah.
And he puts it out, and it's rocking up there. He's performing it up in Canada.
On the Canadian radio
charts. Yeah. All the streaming. And, now there's a lot of crossover with the streaming. Right. Even with Canadian artists. And it's just killing up there. He's doing great. He did a great job of the song. And then I start getting tagged on Instagram. And I've never met Corey. I didn't know him at all.
Yeah.
And I go, who's this? Tyler has this song out in Canada. And I guess it just went viral. And then they hopped over to Sony with it. So the song ended up going top 10 up in Canada. And it was up for single of the year up in Canada at the CCMAs.
Wow.
Same time that it went.
This is with Tyler.
With Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it became a huge hit for Corey.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just a hit song.
Yeah.
I mean, you were right.
It was just, it was a wild, and the thing is that everybody has their own version of the song now, but Corey's version was really special. He's just a really great singer.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his voice, and it was perfect. And I mean, Morgan sounded incredible on the song. Tyler sounds incredible on the song. Corey sounds also incredible on the song. And he really did his own version of it. So it just, little Jesus take the wheel a little bit on these songs, right? So, yeah.
That's amazing.
And now that's happening with this Friday. We have a massive song coming out. And it's even older than that.
Really?
It's we wrote it in 2016.
Can you say what it is or not? You don't.
Yeah, the cat's out of the bag now. They've been advertising it this week, but on Friday it's Cody Johnson and Carrie Underwood.
Oh yeah.
And it's a song I've been performing out. It's a song we wrote not thinking anyone would cut it.
Yeah.
It was just us that day with nothing to write, giving ourselves a little exercise. Let's just pick the most generic title we can think of and let's just write a simple love song today. Okay. And it turned into this now 8 years later. Wow. And I couldn't be more, it makes me sweat just thinking about how magical this is all kind of turning into.
That's amazing.
Because, you go in, I'm not saying you have to be strategic every time. You do want the best song, but when you're doing it as much as we are,
right?
You kind of, or like, let's just say I'm writing with a particular artist. I have to, I kind of aim a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes just following the lead of the artist in the room. But This was just a day of writing to write. And the one other weird thing that happened with that is that I don't think I've ever sat and posted a lyric onto Facebook ever.
Yeah.
Except that day.
What, you like on your personal Facebook page?
I took a picture of the three of us.
Who would you write it with?
Travis Denning and Chris Stevens.
Wow.
And we wrote it over at Starstruck. And I have headphones on, and I took a little picture because we stayed and recorded it that day. And I took a picture of us, and I quoted the lyric, and it came up as a memory, an 8-year-old memory.
Wow.
Like the same week I found out that it was going to be the next single.
Incredible.
Like that's a cool music business thing that had to have happen.
You're just planting seeds all the time.
Yeah.
You never know.
You just don't know. And I kind of like it for the whole town that my last two songs were both 7 and 8, 6 and 8 years old.
Yeah.
Both outside cuts.
Just
not written with the artist.
That's why you just do the work and do the best work you can. Well, before we get out of here, I always like to ask the same question every episode, which is just like, if you could go back in time to younger you, just getting started and like tell them something, give them a piece of advice for the journey ahead, what would you say?
I heard this, so I'm kind of plagiarizing this because it sums up maybe like 4 thoughts that I would put in there.
Yeah.
And I just told this to somebody who asked me the question for themselves last week, is you have the job. To be a songwriter, you have the job whether you have a publishing deal or not. Mm. You get up in the morning, you do the job. So there's a certain amount of like not comparing yourself that's really important. Doing it for the right reasons, as in always serving the song.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I would tell my younger self, though, more than anything, is like to not be afraid to ask for whatever it is you need out with the intention to collaborate. Like,
what do you mean by that?
As in, I always took it as if I asked for anything, I was taking. I was going to ask you for something, and it was going to be selfish of me to ask because I'm asking like I was taking. But if you ask in the sense of a collaboration, like, hey, can you give me some information? And then if you ever need information, like this becomes a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so go into the, like, what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no, right? But I was a little too, like, there were some people that I've been doing this for 20 some odd years here. And there's some people I still haven't, like, I know, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I was a little too shy to like put myself in there, a little bit. But I think if you just trust that your intentions are good, like my intention is I'm asking so that we work together maybe, or like maybe that's part of being in the business is that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I hope that made sense.
It totally does. It's the same thing we talked about earlier. It's just like,
somebody taught me the word germ really early. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to be a germ. But I way overcompensated.
Right. There's a difference.
I'll just be over here. No, don't worry about me, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then there was a definite switch over when I signed with Jeremy that I was going to take stock of my experience
Yeah.
And like count on me, count on myself, count on my experience,
right.
and have that confidence that to bring it in. Not in the sense of like dominating anything, but just as in like I didn't need to walk into a room backwards at this point. You know what I mean? I paid my dues. I really go in.
You know what you're doing.
And I still go in with the intent of wanting to write the best song every time.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of like not downplay that.
Right.
You know?
Totally. I love that. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It was so much fun. And, you know,
that went by really fast, by the way, for me.
It's fine.
That was really quick.
And I'm such a fan of you and your writing and you as a person. So I hope you know that.
Same.
And
stop canceling our writing appointments.
All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenuretown community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.